Hey everyone, my name is Josh Porter. I am a product marketing director at a AI company, and I feel like sharing the wealth of information that is out there about the function of product marketing so much that I wanted to start this podcast. And I wanted to bring in some of my colleagues and friends in the industry who've worked in this function to talk about their experiences and be able, again, to share that wealth of knowledge to be a resource to all of you other product marketers out there in the world. And so today I brought my friend Kari Szul from Google Workspace to talk about her experiences in product marketing and how she got there. So I'm going to give her a little bit of time to introduce herself, and then we'll get into some questions. So Kari, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so my name is Kari Szul. As Josh mentioned, I work at Google Workspace. Started my career as in events, really. Like my career really started kind of there. Went to UT in Austin. I'm a Longhorn. Worked in kind of like regional marketing and like sales enablement in my early days of my career, and then moved into kind of global event strategy at AMD, which was had a big office in Austin. Then moved into campaigns and kind of building and managing teams for campaigns. And then went and got my MBA in London and Boston in a one-year program, landed in New York, and then really began my journey to product marketing. So worked at consulting, I've worked in SIs, doing kind of ABM and industry marketing. And Josh, that's where you and I met in our early days at Google, building really kind of early GTM and like product messaging for industry solutions in Google Cloud, man, almost 6.5 years ago now. And did that for quite a long time on the cloud side, and then came over to the workspace side in the last couple years to help them build that out. And it's a very exciting time for us with Gemini and some of the newer products that I'll talk about. And really, that's been my journey.
That's great. And then before we get into the details, do you want to share any interesting announcements that you've done recently or fun launches?
I was going to get into that. So, what I have been primarily working on and really focused on for the past 2 years is Google Workspace has a brand new app. It is our first new app in many, many years. It is called Google Vids. It is essentially a video application for work. It's an AI-powered video creation tool for work. And this journey has just been loads of fun because I've been on it from the very beginning, from naming this product to designing the icon to writing the taglines and the messaging. And we just announced Vids is finally rolling out to GA as of last week. So very exciting times for us here at Workspace.
Super exciting. That's awesome. I'm sure you're very proud of that. You should be. So great. Awesome. All right. Well, as most of these types of interviews go, we're going to go through a series of questions. And this being the first episode of Porter's Product Marketing Podcast, I really want to get down to the very fundamental question of what is product marketing? How do you define product marketing, Karen?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of iterations of it, but to me, and I feel particularly strong about this because I've just, we brought this product to market, it's starting to roll out, but I really feel like product marketing is being your product's best advocate. It's kind of like that friend that always has your back and they always have your best interest at heart, even if they give it to you kind of like straight sometimes. I feel like that is what product marketing is for me. And I think there's a lot of components that kind of make that roll up. I think it's about like first and foremost, deeply understanding your landscape of your product, understanding the competitive landscape, understanding what you could offer that could be different. That helps define your narrative, understanding where there are potential product gaps that you have, where those are opportunities and challenges that you work deeply with your PM team, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's about like defining who your customer is and shaping that based on the pain points and how your product can help solve that customer's problem. I think it's really about like crafting thoughtful messaging that really brings that story to life and helps your product shine in a way that is really going to connect with like that intended audience that you have defined. I think it's really thinking about like the best way to package that offering in a way that is going to resonate with your customers and make sure that you have that place in the market, sales enablement, making sure they have the right resources and they're positioning the product in the right way, educating your users so they're able to quickly derive value from that product and really understand the value very quickly. And then as that product kind of stabilizes and you move through bringing it to market, really making sure that your users are educated about new features and usage, so you're continuing that conversation with them. And then it's about iterating with your UX teams and bringing a lot of that feedback from sales back to them so we can plan for the future and influence the roadmap and continue to, again, just like represent that product in the best light. So I know that's a really long answer, but I think there's a lot of components that go into it.
Totally. Yeah. And, a few of the things, if I were to summarize it, right, it's, of course, understanding the product, it's understanding the customers, and it's understanding the competition.
100%.
Those three things are really key to the role. And there are bits and pieces of that in other parts of the organization, but product marketing is the one that really summarizes all that together. So thanks for kind of honing in on what does it mean to be in product marketing. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So related to that question, now that we understand a little bit more about what it is, what are the things that you do? What are the key responsibilities you have in product marketing?
Yeah, so I think we kind of like when we think about the buckets, right? A lot of that is kind of the narrative piece, right? Like making sure that you are telling a story, not just that you're telling a story in a vacuum, I think, but telling a story that is going to resonate with your intended audience, testing that messaging, and really kind of iterating on it. I often say that like the messaging docs we create are living documents. They're not static, and they should continue to kind of change with the market. A lot of the kind of key responsibilities that I particularly work on are really working closely with PM and UX to bring those customer insights back to them and iterate on that stuff. I think a lot of what we do is, particularly at larger organizations like Google, is we kind of act as the owner and the expert of that product too. So as we know, with Workspace, we're a platform play. So there's lots of different ways that we go to market and a lot of expertise that different marketing groups are asking us to weigh in on, making sure that we're representing the product truth and the messaging correctly. So that's a big piece of what we do. And then just interacting with sales teams, right? A lot of kind of sales education, enablement, again, acting as that kind of sales-facing product expert in a lot of cases. Those are kind of the big key anchor pieces of what we do. And then, of course, events, which Josh, you and I worked on a lot.
Oh, yes.
Cloud Next, making sure our products are represented in a great light, whether that's demos or messaging and things like that. And that's also a big component of what we do.
100%. Yeah. Messaging is really key, working on getting that messaging out to the market, whether that's through events or copy on certain assets. So yeah, 100% those things that you do to bring the function to life is really important. So those responsibilities as product marketing can be really vast and pretty dynamic and involves a lot of other stakeholders. So to that end, it's a good segue to talk about collaboration. So product marketing has to span the gamut around lots of different teams. You've already mentioned a few, but what are the teams that you interact with the most?
Yeah, I think a lot of times like product marketing is like the hub and the spoke of the product, right? And so, obviously we're working with product teams so often around like different features. When are they launching? How does that narrative tie into the broader kind of platform narrative of your product? We work a lot with UX and UXR, particularly when we're in development of new products. So UX teams, for folks that don't interact with this stuff a lot, are kind of the design teams that really are focused on the UI. And then UXR teams are teams that are really focused deeply on like the user and the user journey and making the product easier for the user to adapt and use. So we work a lot with those folks. And then, of course, we've talked about this, but like a lot of the kind of sales enablement, so usage and adoption, so enabling that product to work well, enabling a user to really clearly understand that. So that's like customer support people, educating sales on, representing this stuff in our CSM teams, which are customer success teams. So that's post sale, making sure that they are really easily kind of able to scale training and educate users. And then we work with go-to-market teams around SKU slotting, how we're representing pricing, things like that. And of course, we work with like the traditional marketing folks. So that's like brand, campaigns, the growth teams. So those are the teams that are really focused on these broad-based kind of campaign narratives at the Google Workspace level or the Google Cloud level. And then those growth teams are the ones that are ultimately on the hook for kind of the sell-through of the revenue. And because I work on a particular product that's part of a larger platform, I interface with those people, but I'm not creating like a standalone demand gen campaign because we don't sell like that. And then of course we work with like a lot of external agencies, creative agencies, and even research teams when we're thinking about message testing and kind of positioning.
Yeah. Okay. And wow, I mean, it's such a huge amount of work to try to collaborate with all these teams. Just that was 5 or 6 plus that you mentioned there. And so of course, working with product to understand the specific ins and outs of the product itself and try how you navigate it and what's the problem it's solving for customers. And then, as you mentioned, UX and UXR to try to user experience research to say, all right, how are customers going to navigate through this? And so that's really key. Also, you mentioned sales, and sales obviously is this really important stakeholder because as you understand the product, you're supposed to make the technical relatable. And so you take this technical pieces of information, give it to the sales team so that they can sell it to perhaps, non-technical audiences, line of business leaders, or it is a technical audience and you kind of have to adapt to the messaging from there. So yeah, so many teams you have to work with, and it can be exciting but exhausting at the same time. I mean, do you feel that? Is that something you experience with working with all those teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think even when we were in our previous roles at industry marketing and functioning kind of as a GTM industry campaign folks, I think in marketing in general, we are kind of the hub of the wheel. And so we kind of have our hands in everything. I think with product marketing, the challenge is you need to go deeper because you need to know more than enough to be dangerous. You need to be the expert and kind of the holder of that knowledge and the bridge between these teams. And so, it's about kind of, I think, establishing strong relationships with your stakeholders, bringing valuable insights to them so they can trust you. And so when you are kind of overwhelmed, there's like some give and take there, right? And just establishing that trust. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And to that point about being the expert, this relates to some of the comments you said earlier about working and getting research on customers. The very important, most fundamental piece about marketing in general, not just product marketing, is understanding your audience. That's 101. And so when you do customer research, how do you gather insights about your customers and translate them into actionable data?
Yeah. I mean, so with Google Vids, we've been on this journey I mentioned for a while, and so early on, we really, it was UX and UXR and PM kind of defining with deep conversations with kind of user groups that had interacted with this product that we were looking at building and kind of what barriers they faced. And then that helped inform that. And then it really helped inform kind of a little bit of the early messaging. And then as we were moving along through the product development, I really took on a piece where we had pulled together kind of early messaging frameworks and we were having ideas about who we wanted to target. And then we started really working with focus groups, people that were familiar with our larger brand and then people that weren't. And in this case, we were blind studies because we just didn't want to influence anyone in terms of like their thinking and their sharing. And that really helped define our kind of segmentation and our personas and kind of early audiences that we shared back with our kind of product development teams. And then more recently, as we have gotten closer to, while we've been in beta, I partner very deeply with my product marketing or my product management team. And we have gone on a roadshow of sorts globally to kind of target some key customers that we think are really representative of kind of the key personas and the market that we're looking at. And we've gone and pitched them on the narrative. So it's really giving me real-time feedback on, is the message landing? And if not, like, what do we need to tweak as we scale, right? And customers are able to get their hands on the tool, and we're training them early days. So we're able to do a couple things with that. We're able to understand gaps in, future roadmap. We're able to understand kind of early kind of like value and confirm our product market fit as we think about the personas we're targeting, the audiences that are important, who's going to derive the most value from the tool. Because now we're moving from the theoretical to like, now people are actually able to use it. And then for me, kind of selfishly as a product marketer, I am trying to identify kind of early adopters and big fans that will help us tell that story to the market, because that is so important, especially when you're thinking about a new tool. We can say as product marketers how great our tool is, but it is much more powerful for a customer to say that, right? And share that. And so I am in like my mining phase, trying to unearth those early fans, right? And I think that is really important. But going on these kind of voice of the customer kind of roadshows and bringing those insights back, we have deep notes, we code these things, and bringing those back to the product teams and the UX teams is super valuable. And it can help influence that roadmap, build trust with your stakeholders. And then ultimately what we're trying to do as product marketers is like serve our customers, right? And so that's kind of the way that I think about those things.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and those focus groups definitely, clearly in your instance really helped in trying to understand, what's the feedback? How does it work? Do they understand it? Are there things we need to go back to, modify the tool? And so that not only helps you collaborate with the product team to provide insights that maybe they didn't have from before, but also helps you with your messaging in that you understand with the perspective that they're coming from. Did you find that this process was easy, or did you kind of have to like work, create a process on your own? What was the way in which you approached getting this information?
I think, it's a deep partnership with PMs, right? And I think I'm very especially blessed because I have a couple of PMs that are just very deeply GTM focused. They
Awesome.
understand how to be client facing and how important it is for us to get that feedback from the customer pretty quickly. And we've been able to structure the program in a way that I think is super valuable for our customers as well, right? Because they're getting something out of it. They're able to directly influence roadmap, right? By providing that feedback. And so, and it creates kind of these early partnerships with customers that are our target market. And if we can serve them well, then we can serve a wider market, right? And I think it's especially important just to have that, whether you have an existing product or a new product coming to market, that you have these kind of key customers that they're getting something of value from you and you're getting something of value that you can kind of continue to iterate. And they're a partner that will provide you kind of that hard feedback sometimes of like, hey, this isn't working for me. And so that your PM and Eng teams can work to kind of iterate and create a better experience. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like that's what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah, totally. So that's great. It sounds like you really had a good tight knit relationship with product to kind of help get that information. And then once you're able to actually gather it from the customers themselves, you're able to kind of relay that information back to them. So, and that's awesome. And in the end, as you said, for product marketing, as part of this is understanding the customer, and we're trying with this product to solve a problem that they have. And so we can have all kinds of opinions, but what really matters is how is it land with the customer. And so this customer research that you've done, and that as you do as part of the function, really enables you to give those insights back to the product team and the other stakeholders to say, this is working or this isn't, and this is what we need to change. So
yeah, and it's so valuable for us because we get to understand, nothing is more satisfying in my product marketing world than to have a customer unprompted basically parrot back to me my messaging. Without me, doing anything. They're just like, this product is so awesome. I don't have to be a I don't have to have a creative bone in my body and I can produce something. I'm like, this is everyone can be a great storyteller. And that is the message. So
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're spot on that. If customers and press and media are echoing back to you the messaging that you created, then you absolutely know that it's working. So that's great. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, those were our main hard questions. So thank you for going through that, Carrie. That was awesome. It's really good to kind of get your insights on what it is to be a product marketer, what the responsibilities are, the collaboration, and the research that you do. So now I want to kind of move into a different phase of this interview and go a little bit more to like fun questions.
Okay.
So, first question is, what's your favorite marketing tool?
Well, I think this one is going to come as no surprise to you, but I would
Sure.
say Google Vids right now.
Yeah.
It's just, it is really such a fun tool. I have been using it for like internal newsletter stuff, and there's like ways that you can be really creative with it. And certainly we as marketers are always trying to land our message in a pretty noisy world. And so, yeah, it's been a fun tool and everyone should check it out. Google Vids.
You can absolutely pick that as your favorite marketing tool because that's your baby. You've been working on that. So that's awesome. Totally makes sense. What do you really think is the most underrated skill in product marketing?
I think there's probably two things. I think one is this kind of not just ability to translate kind of technical stuff into like end user value, but I think also the ability to take that and understand that that is different when you are trying to like create a demand gen campaign, right? Like
Hmm.
kind of translate that kind of technical product marketing features into like short snappy campaign copy, right? I think that
Hmm.
that is kind of underrated skill that I would love to see more product marketers be able to do. I think also just the ability to really like be sales facing, right? Like be
Hmm.
that kind of glue between the more technical folks on the end side and really take the insights from sales and customers and be able to pull that through in a way that makes sense to Eng, right?
Yeah,
I think that that is a tough thing to do, but it's so important, right?
totally. Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, now next question is, what do you think is the biggest mistake to avoid in product marketing?
Oh man. I think really setting on a path before you have like deeply understood your customer first, right? I think oftentimes, generally, in products, we all live in a vacuum, like whatever our product is. We're like so excited, we know it deeply, we know all the story, but we forget that like other people have no idea what we're building or like what it is at
Yeah.
all. And we're like, oh, you don't get it right away, right? And I think like we get all wrapped up in the process and sometimes we don't check ourselves and we get farther down the road than we should be sometimes when we haven't kind of just like seen early on in the process with customers like what they think, right? And I
Hmm.
think that goes for like any product. We're all like kind of once you have that job, you're focused on like whatever it is. When we were building industry solutions in cloud, like we need to really, I think, sometimes get outside of our bubbles in more ways than one, right? And just make sure
Yeah.
that we're kind of talking to the customers.
Yes, yeah, I think that is super solid advice. Yeah, don't go too far down that path without really, again, doing marketing one-on-one, understanding the customer, because you could think you're building the best product in the world and have the best messaging, but if you didn't have the customer in mind all along, then it just may just fall flat. So, 100% agree with you on that. Okay, last question is, what is one thing you wish you knew when you started?
I'm going to ask you when I started my career or when I started at.
And product marketing
Hmm.
specifically.
I think this one, I would say that a mentor of mine told me a long time ago, and it still resonates today. Don't ever assume when you first come in that somebody hasn't tried the idea that you have, and just make sure that you talk to enough people and it doesn't mean that you can't go forward with your idea. Just understand where that person or team ran into a problem or the barrier the last time, try to learn from that, right? So I think like the biggest piece I take from that is like just be humble, right? Especially
Hmm.
like come into a new role or a new group or and that can go from product marketing in general, but especially like leading teams and things like that. I think we all come in with our new perspective and we're all bushy, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed sometimes. And
Yeah,
it's just remembering that there's a lot of great ideas out there, and it doesn't mean that you can't accomplish whatever this initiative you have. It's just try to learn from kind of the other kind of roadblocks along the way, right, and improve it.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. Absolutely. It's the humility, just having the ability to kind of understand if you're, especially as you're first starting out, like, okay, I probably don't know all the things, or maybe I do know a lot here, but let me test it out with some other people first, see what they have done or tried, and see if I have like a different point of view on this. So I think that's great. That's absolutely super helpful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at the end. Thank you so much, Kari, for your time. It's been a great opportunity to hear about your experience in product marketing. And thank you all for joining us here on this first episode of Porter's Product Marketing Podcast. We will hope you look forward to more episodes coming in the future and hope to see you there. Have a good one.